Now, imagine walking into your favorite cafe just looking to enjoy a quiet cup of coffee, only to be told by the bouncer to leave, because you don't have a reservation. Sounds crazy, right? Well, it gets even crazier when that bouncer has no idea who you are, and you happen to be Meryl Streep. Stick around to see how this awkward moment turns into a viral disaster for one poor guy, and how Meryl handles it like a pro. Trust me, you won't want to miss the twist at the end. Before we dive into this story, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell me where you're watching from, and don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more amazing stories. The morning rush at Le Chic Café is in full swing. The trendy spot is bustling with energy, packed with the usual crowd of wannabe influencers, hip professionals, and anyone hoping to rub elbows with someone famous. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee fills the air, blending seamlessly with the chatter of excited conversations. Every table is occupied by patrons who seem like they're either making business deals or trying to be seen in the most Instagram-worthy setting. At the entrance stands a bouncer, his job clearly defined. Scan the crowd for troublemakers, ensure the line moves quickly, and keep the cafe's exclusive aura intact. He checks the guest list on his phone, scanning the names, unaware that one of Hollywood's most recognizable faces is about to waltz right in front of him. Meryl Streep enters the cafe. She's wearing sunglasses, a cozy sweater, and a baseball cap, trying to blend in with the crowd. Her presence, however, doesn't make her stand out. Her casual, down-to-earth style contrasts with the polished look of others in the room. She's just here for a quiet cup of coffee, no fuss, no fanfare. She walks past the line, unaware of the eyes subtly tracking her movement as she heads toward the entrance, her mind on nothing but the perfect latte she's about to order. As she approaches the door, the bouncer spots her, his eyes quickly scanning her outfit, trying to assess whether she's on the list. She gets closer, a light grin on her face, thinking this is just another casual coffee run. But then in an instant he blocks her path. No reservation. You'll have to leave, he says, his tone stern and final. He eyes her as if she's just another regular person, not even pausing to recognize the famous face behind the sunglasses. Meryl pauses, surprised. Her brows furrow as she processes the situation. What? Her expression quickly shifts from confusion to bemusement. She hadn't expected this. The bouncer, still unwavering, stares at her with a hint of impatience, like he's just dealing with some minor inconvenience. The surrounding patrons begin to take notice, some glancing up from their drinks, others shifting their attention toward the growing confrontation. Meryl opens her mouth to explain, but the bouncer doesn't even give her a moment to speak. You heard me. No reservation, no entry. That's how it works here, he states, the crowd now clearly aware of the unusual exchange. His words, though blunt, seem to carry weight in the air, heightening the tension. Meryl stands there for a moment, her heart rate quickening. She's not one to be flustered, but the nerve of this guy, really? A few murmurs from the crowd float through the air. Someone pulls out a phone, ready to capture the drama. The tension between Meryl and the bouncer intensifies, like the final scene in a thriller. Meryl's lips tighten into a thin line as she stands her ground, trying to make sense of this bizarre situation. She knows she has to speak up, but the bouncer won't let her. The screen cuts to black, leaving the audience on edge, eagerly waiting to see what happens next. Meryl takes a slow, deliberate breath, trying to steady herself. She forces a smile, hoping to remain composed. I think there's been a mistake, she says calmly, her voice smooth and professional. I'm Meryl Streep. She raises an eyebrow, her tone hinting at the disbelief she feels in the situation. The bouncer looks at her with complete indifference, as if he's heard this all before. He studies her for a moment, clearly unsure of how to respond. But then his expression hardens. Doesn't matter. No reservation, no entry. We run a tight ship here, he says, crossing his arms and standing even taller, as if his authority is beyond question. His tone is firm, leaving no room for negotiation. Meryl's eyes narrow slightly, the confusion on her face melting into a blend of surprise and frustration. Why doesn't he know who I am? She thinks. Her hands instinctively curl into fists at her sides, but she doesn't let it show. The cafe around her begins to hum with whispers, as more and more people begin to notice the escalating situation. The cameras from patrons' phones flash to life, already anticipating that this is about to go viral. She tries again, her voice a little firmer this time. I really think you should double-check the list. But before she can finish, the bouncer interrupts her, louder this time, almost as if to assert his control over the situation. No exceptions. Everyone's treated the same here, he says, his words hanging heavily in the air. His declaration feels like a challenge, and it only draws more attention from the cafe's patrons. The crowd shifts in their seats, leaning in to catch every word. The silence that falls over the cafe feels oppressive, stretching on uncomfortably as the tension builds. A few patrons, clearly sensing an opportunity for a viral moment, start recording with their phones, whispering to one another. The awkwardness in the room is palpable, and Meryl feels the weight of their gazes. Her calm demeanor starts to slip, replaced by a sharp edge of irritation. The bouncer's words seem to echo in the stillness of the room, intensifying the moment. It's as if the entire cafe is holding its breath, waiting for what comes next. Finally, Meryl stops. Her eyes lock with the bouncer's, and for the first time she lets her frustration show. Her voice is steady, but the underlying edge is unmistakable. "I don't have time for this. Are you seriously kicking me out?" The words hang in the air, her disbelief now fully apparent. Her presence in the room is a stark contrast to the bouncer's rigid stance, and the tension between them feels like it could snap at any second. The bouncer pauses. His expression falters for a fraction of a second, but only for a moment. He clears his throat, trying to maintain his control over the situation. Without breaking eye contact with Meryl, he raises his hand and gestures for backup, signaling to another staff member. His voice, now slightly strained, rings out across the cafe. And just as Meryl braces herself for whatever might come next, the screen fades to black. The silence is deafening. The audience is left on edge, hanging in the balance, unsure of what will happen when the lights come back on. Just as Meryl stands there, her patience wearing thin, the cafe manager bursts through the crowd, visibly flustered. His eyes scan the scene quickly, first landing on Meryl and then darting over to the bouncer, his face draining of color. Wait. What's going on here?" he exclaims as if trying to make sense of the situation. The bouncer, caught off guard, shifts uncomfortably under the manager's gaze. The crowd quiets, sensing that something important is about to unfold. Meryl remains composed, but there's a slight tension in her posture as she watches the manager approach. The manager's eyes widen in shock, as if the realization is just now hitting him. He steps closer to Meryl, his tone apologetic but frantic. "Ma'am, I'm so sorry. This is Meryl Streep. She's a VIP." He stammers, his words tripping over each other. The bouncer's face turns an almost ghostly white as he processes the situation, his lips struggling to form an apology. Meryl glances at the bouncer, then back at the manager, and lets out a soft chuckle. "It's all right, no harm done," she says, her voice carrying a playful edge. "Though I have to admit, it's not every day I get kicked out of a cafe for not having a reservation." Her tone is sarcastic, but there's a hint of grace behind it. The bouncer, now entirely mortified, tries to speak, but the words get caught in his throat. Meryl gives him a quick, dismissive wave, her expression still light but clearly conveying that this whole situation is beneath her. She turns her attention back to the manager, who's scrambling to make things right. "I'm so sorry, Miss Streep," the manager repeats, profusely apologizing as he gestures toward an open table. "Please allow me to escort you to your seat. This should never have happened." Meryl, ever the professional, doesn't make a scene. She nods politely, smiling with a slight tilt of her head. "I think I'll find my own way," she replies, her voice calm yet firm, as if she's done this sort of thing 1,000 times. She brushes past the manager with ease, her steps deliberate as she heads to an empty table in the back of the cafe. The bouncer stands frozen, still trying to process the entire exchange. His face is a shade of red that could rival a tomato, and his eyes are wide with shock. The awkwardness of the moment is thick in the air, as the rest of the cafe watches the spectacle unfold. Patrons who had been recording the incident now turn their attention to him, their phones ready to capture the aftermath. The bouncer, completely unaware of who he's dealing with, now finds himself the subject of everyone's attention. As Meryl sits at her table, the hum of conversations in the cafe picks up again, but the vibe has shifted. People are now whispering about the bouncer's mistake, and soon enough, it's clear that this is the talk of the day. The tension in the cafe lifts, but it's quickly replaced by something much more uncomfortable for the bouncer: the growing realization that his mistake is about to go viral. His face is still pale, and he can't help but wonder how badly this will affect his career. The cafe's atmosphere, once filled with casual chatter, now hums with the buzz of people gossiping and speculating about the unfortunate encounter. Meryl, meanwhile, sits calmly sipping her coffee, seemingly unaffected by the commotion she's just caused. To her, it's just another day in the life of a Hollywood star, minus the little hiccup at the door, of course. As Meryl settles into her seat, the weight of the earlier confrontation begins to fade. She takes a slow sip of her coffee, now completely at ease, as though the entire incident had never happened. But the ripple effect is far from over. Within minutes, the video of the awkward exchange between Meryl and the bouncer is everywhere. Social media explodes as people share the footage, adding their own commentary, memes, and hashtags. The confrontation has gone viral. Hashtags like #StreepGate and #BouncerFail are trending, and the world seems to be eating it up. The video of Meryl, calmly and composed, while the bouncer stubbornly insists on kicking her out, is a spectacle that the internet can't get enough of. Meanwhile, Meryl, now fully aware of the frenzy she's unintentionally created, scrolls through her phone with a bemused smile. The comments flood in from all directions with fans, followers, and even random strangers jumping in to support her and poke fun at the bouncer. Meryl's grace versus the bouncer's face, one tweet says. Another person comments, when you try to kick out a legend, and fail miserably. Meryl reads each one with a quiet chuckle, entertained by the whirlwind she's unintentionally caused. This is too good, she thinks to herself, shaking her head in amusement. The world's response to this little cafe mishap is far more entertaining than she could have imagined. She enjoys the moment, letting the light-hearted nature of the situation take over. In a playful move, Meryl decides to add her own voice to the growing online buzz. She posts a picture of herself sitting comfortably at the cafe, sipping her coffee like nothing out of the ordinary has happened. The caption reads, "Just trying to have a quiet day?" But apparently the coffee isn't the only thing getting roasted today. #no reservations #VIP. The combination of her wit and casual demeanor adds fuel to the viral fire. On the other side of the phone screen, the bouncer's day is spiraling downward. His phone buzzes constantly, blowing up with notifications. He watches, helpless, as friends tag him in the memes that have already circulated far and wide. One person posts, "This bouncer tried to kick out Meryl Streep and failed. #BouncerFail." Others comment on how poorly he handled the situation, calling him out for not recognizing one of Hollywood's most famous faces. The bouncer's cheeks flush with embarrassment as the flood of comments and messages piles up. The realization begins to hit him. This is going to be everywhere. Back at the cafe, the manager's face has gone from pale to red as he watches the situation unfold. As the memes and hashtags continue to gain traction, he starts to sweat, realizing that the cafe's name is now tied to a viral fiasco. His phone buzzes too, but it's not with the kind of messages he'd like to receive. One is from the cafe owner, simply saying, "What's happening?" He knows the answer. The negative attention is flooding in faster than he can handle. A group of patrons at a nearby table exchange glances and chuckle as they scroll through their phones. "Did you see this? The bouncer literally tried to kick out Meryl Streep." One of them laughs and the others follow suit. The moment has turned into a full-fledged joke, and the cafe is now the punchline. As Meryl continues to sip her coffee and scroll through her phone, she's completely unfazed. The bouncer, on the other hand, is left to stew in the consequences of his blunder. In a way, the whole cafe is now in the spotlight, and not in the way they ever intended. As the viral storm continues to swirl around the cafe, the owner, clearly desperate to salvage the reputation of his business, releases a public apology. The cafe's social media channels are flooded with the message, "We deeply regret the incident that occurred earlier today. We take full responsibility for the mistake, and our staff will undergo thorough training to ensure that such an incident never happens again. In the meantime, we are pleased to offer Meryl Streep a free lifetime membership to our cafe, as a small token of our appreciation for her patience and understanding." The apology is swift and professional, but it's clear the damage has already been done. Still, the cafe owner hopes that this gesture will at least calm the storm of online backlash. Meryl, always the consummate professional, reads the apology with a smile. She's unfazed by the chaos that's been swirling around her. With a wink and a playful shrug, she turns to the manager who's standing nervously nearby, trying to fix the mess. "I guess I'll make sure to book a reservation next time, huh?" she quips, her voice dripping with humor. The manager, relieved that she's handling the situation so gracefully, laughs along with the people around her. The entire cafe chuckles, the tension in the air finally dissipating. Meanwhile, the bouncer, now infamous, has to face the consequences of his viral moment. In a desperate attempt to save face, he posts a public apology on his own social media account. "Sorry Meryl, I didn't recognize you. I'll never judge a book by its cover again," he writes, trying to salvage whatever shred of dignity he can. Meryl, ever the master of the perfect comeback, can't resist commenting under his post. With her trademark wit, she writes, "Good luck, you'll need it." The comment quickly gains traction, with more people liking it than the bouncer's original post. The internet has now fully embraced Meryl's playful, unbothered attitude, while the bouncer's public apology becomes the butt of even more jokes. As the day progresses, the café becomes even more packed than usual. People from all over flock to Le Chic Café, hoping to catch a glimpse of the legendary Meryl Streep, who is now a part of the café's lore. The staff, though still a bit shaken from the incident, now find themselves serving a line of eager customers who are all eager for their own taste of the celebrity café experience. The bouncer, now the café's most famous and memed employee, stands awkwardly by the door. His eyes dart around nervously, scanning for any potential trouble, but it's clear to everyone that he's now the last person anyone is afraid of. The viral storm he created has completely overshadowed his role as a bouncer, and now he's simply a punchline. He can't help but feel the weight of the situation. Every time someone walks in, there's a chance they're there just to take a picture of that famous bouncer. As the day winds down, the café is still buzzing with excitement, but it's clear that the attention has shifted. Meryl, who is now sitting back with her coffee, amused by all the fuss, has turned the entire incident into one more story to laugh about. The bouncer, on the other hand, will likely never live this down. And so, with the café filled to the brim and the bouncer looking more uncomfortable by the second, the day fades into the evening. Le Chic Café may have survived the viral storm, but the echoes of this unforgettable moment will likely be felt for a long time, and it's a safe bet that the bouncer will think twice before judging anyone else based on their appearance.